Hi, sorry I'm late. I had trouble with Zoom here this morning.
We're all having
In
trouble.
New York State.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great.
Yes,
How's everybody?
Good.
we are holding on, Senator.
Very good.
We're holding on. It's been a difficult year, as you well know, but we're trying to hold on here in Tompkins County and do what's right for everyone.
You getting ready to expand your sheriff's department?
You really
No,
had to
you were-
start there, right? You really had to start there?
So it's going to be like that.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
is a really good place to start, Senator.
Sorry.
No, we appreciate the humor. Thank you. Well, again, Senator, thank you for joining us. We really do appreciate having these one-on-one conversations. I'm glad that you could be here and get on Zoom because we don't know how much time we have with you. Today, we don't want to take up too much jibber jabbering and just sort of go through some of the things that we wanted to get your opinion, your thoughts, and just share with you where we are. Some of them relate to the state budget, some are just non-budget issues, and just general issues that are of concern to us in Tompkins County. So without, or if there's something that you wanted to focus on, we're really interested in hearing as well from you, what has been going on and what you'd like to share with us.
Sure. Sure.
Let me just, Senator, do you know everybody that you can see on the screen here? Do you know Lisa Holmes?
Thank you, Martha.
I'm looking. Yes, I know Lisa. Yeah.
Okay.
True.
And
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And how much time do you have? A couple folks have other 2:00 meetings, but what's your schedule like?
I'm good until I think 3:30, 3 o'clock, something like that. I forget.
Okay.
We won't take that long.
Good.
Well, thank you. Thanks a lot for the flexibility. So why don't we start with any stuff you'd like to share with us, and then we'll get into what's on our agenda as well.
Well, sure. As I'm sure you know, we just did our the one house budgets at the beginning of this week, and those are kind of pie in the sky wish lists for what the majority conferences would like to see. It was very concerning to me with the extent of spending that's increasing in these proposals by some 15 to 16 billion dollars over what the governor had proposed. You know, we certainly got a windfall from the federal stimulus package that's coming to the state and local governments. I haven't had a chance to drill down yet and see what Tompkins County is particularly is getting directly through that. But you know, our challenge is going to be getting the governor to get that money to flow. Any money that's not going directly to local governments or school districts, we got to make sure that that flows to where it's supposed to go, because we've seen from the first two CARES Act stimulus packages, a lot of that money is just sitting in state bank accounts, so to speak, right now. So that's frustrating. We have 2 weeks now to negotiate the budget. Things are obviously in a great deal of turmoil in the state, in the Capitol, with everything that's going on with the governor. And it's going to be a very different budget negotiation this year than I think we've ever seen before. Certainly the legislative majorities are filling their oats, so to speak, and you know, doing some very aggressive things in the budget that the governor has not proposed. So it's going to be interesting to see how much pushback the governor gives, given the unfortunate circumstances that we're in that process right now. You know, I don't see anything happening with the governor prior to a budget getting done. So he's going to be the one that the legislature is negotiating with. And what happens with him after that, remains to be seen. But certainly, he's up to his eyeballs in crocodiles at this point. It's unfortunate that we have to deal with this at the present moment in the midst of a budget that I think, if the spending goes as the legislative majorities are seeking right now, we're going to find ourselves on a fiscal cliff 2 years from now that will be far worse than what we would have been facing without federal stimulus money coming in. So it's concerning to me on which way this is going to go, and I hope we get a little more rational and reasonable about the spending, because I think certainly the deficits that we've had in the state, we had about a $6 billion deficit going into this year, and that was before COVID. The governor claims that we took care of that deficit in this year's budget that we're in right now. I really don't think that was the case, but nor do I think that the deficit was as extensive as the governor had portrayed it to be throughout all of his efforts dealing with Washington to get that. So I think we're in a solid fiscal shape budget-wise as far as making ends meet to where they are right now. But a lot of these increases and nearly $7 billion in increased tax proposals could have long-term effects on the state, and particularly the financial industry, because that's where they're targeted. I have concerns over the financial industry slowly leaving New York State, and a lot of wealthy people with it that generate huge revenues across the state to our benefit in upstate. And if we drive that industry out, it's over 20% of state revenues at risk. So that's a long-term concern that I have. So that's all I have to say at this point. I'm looking forward to your issues and hearing what's most important to you guys at this point.
Thank you very
Thank you very much, Senator. Go ahead, Martha.
Thanks, Leslie. Excuse me. Did you get, or did your office get the email that we sent this morning? I had the agenda and a number of attachments.
Yeah, I got it. I gotta say, I haven't had a chance to review it though. Sorry.
Right, and sorry I didn't get it to you earlier than that. But I think a couple of you hit on a couple of things that we're feeling better about, like the restoration of the 5% withholding that both houses have included. We're deeply grateful for that.
Yeah, I certainly see that ending up in there. I mean, I think we did as a state certainly far better than I ever anticipated with where this ended up. So I don't see how the governor can really push back on us on that 5%. So hopefully that's solid.
That's a big deal, because that would otherwise be a 5% cut for, going forward as a new baseline.
Yep.
Yeah, we truly appreciate that. Thank you.
We understand that this on the sales tax diversion, the Senate for the hospital fund. Well, there are two main versions of diversion of our sales tax. There's the AIM funding and the hospital distressed hospital fund. We thank the Senate and the Assembly for restoring the AIM aid. We appreciate the state picking, if you win, picking that back up, we really appreciate that. That's north of $330,000 for us in a year. The hospital fund, we understand the Senate did not include picking that up. We do understand it's this 1 year more. So it's not an ongoing cut, but that is something we were a little disappointed in.
Yeah, me as well. I didn't like that diversion of sales tax dollars to begin with. I don't think it's fair And, you know, we're from at least my conference's perspective, we're continuing to push for that. Don't really have an explanation as to why the majority did not choose to do that. The AIM restoration was good, but, you know, realistically, if Cuomo survives what's going on right now, you know, his MO since he's been in office is to eliminate AIM funding. And that's something that if he sticks around, he'll continue to push. So just keep that in mind going forward, that, you know, that's certainly been a target of his, not mine. And, you know, the governor, particularly with his lack of follow through on mandate relief that was promised with the tax cap that we did, it's just one of the earliest examples of the governor's lack of credibility with the legislature. And that's just one example early on. There was kind of a shot across the bow to us that, you know, his word means nothing, unfortunately. And we've come to, you know, we've been dealing with that for 10 years now.
I'm going to jump to the public safety items on our agenda because 3 folks have to leave who are especially concerned about this. It's interesting you mentioned that we started off talking about our Reimagining Public Safety initiative. You know, a couple of our recommendations are really have to be dealt with by the state with respect to civil service reform, disciplinary reform, Section 75 of the law. Lisa, Les, and Henry, does one of you want to pick up there?
Sure, I can jump in. Nice to see you, Senator. So yeah, under the Reimagining Public Safety, which we're in the midst of a lot of deliberations right now locally, but the 3 items that we're asking for our state partners help and support with is looking at revising the civil service exam process to more of a broadened pass-fail system or broadened band scoring, which would help us in terms of recruitment for a more diverse workforce around public safety officers. Continuous recruitment for both law enforcement and corrections, which is currently in place right now with the state with the Department of Corrections. And then reforming the disciplinary procedures around Section 75, which, as you probably are aware, can get very protracted and costly. And what it ends up doing is tying up personnel that should be out, you know, on the road and promoting public safety. And so currently there are exceptions in town law, as well as under city charters that were adopted prior to Section 75 that enable local control of the disciplinary process, which we're interested in exploring because we feel if we had local control, it could be much more timely and we could get people back to work faster or removed faster and doing the work that they were supposed to be doing.
Is that just applicable to law enforcement, or is that something you're seeking across the board?
In this context, it's applicable to law enforcement. Yeah.
On the broader band or the pass-fail, it's something that we tried to push about 10 years ago and actually got a Cornell study group, graduate group to study the issue. We made a specific petition to civil service. You may remember that, and it went absolutely nowhere.
Yeah, I do. I guess my comment was just in regard to the disciplinary process. I've been supportive of loosening up the civil service process for sure. That would help with diversity issues in police departments across the state. You know, having to choose from the top 3 is just way too limiting, and really makes it difficult to find candidates that are diverse, that are more representative of the communities that they're policing. So, and I think that's important. The disciplinary process, I guess I'd like to know a little bit more about what your experience has been and how you'd like to see that changed.
Sure. We can provide you with some more information, but I know that we're going on probably 18 months of, in one case, waiting for hearing through PERB for a disciplinary issue, which means that that individual is not doing his duties on the road, and we're waiting for, and that's 6 months to a year is not unusual while we're waiting for these processes to take place. And that just.
And Lisa, the person's being paid in full the whole time, correct?
Correct.
But not working.
Yeah, after what, they could be what, off like a month or something without pay, and then they go back on.
Correct. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's costly. We have the same issues at the school district level. It's constant struggle.
Yes. And then it
Yeah.
hampers the rest of the operation.
Right, because it's not like you can, like many other positions, you can hire a part-time, person to fill in or whatever it is. And so when you have limited number of deputies patrolling, people also out in disability and everything else, that really compromises the public safety. And so we have to think about that. And we'd love to see some reform, happen to that. And local municipalities and governments will, Tompkins County for one, the city has that option, be given local control to manage this.
NISAC has actually passed a resolution about the top three and the pass fail. What's the best way? How could we push this along? Which committee would be relevant?
Well, there's local governments. There's I forget what it's called, but there's basically a civil service committee. I forget what the name of it is off the top of my head right now. That and the codes committee that deals with law enforcement issues as a whole is ones that should be targeted.
I think you're on codes.
I'm on codes. Yeah.
Listen, did I cut you off?
Yeah, I was about to, because I'm gonna have to jump off, and I do apologize, Senator. I was just about to reiterate something you said, Martha, just in terms of civil service and the work that we did, trying to just pilot a pass fail. We wasn't asking for the entire county. We were going to pilot it with the Department of Social Services to see how it will work. Part of the issue when we talk about even reimagining public safety, we're talking about, trying to reduce incidences of poverty, people living in poverty. Those things all matter in the bigger picture. So having a system that is inherently, in some respects, biased and inherently a barrier to a diverse group of people getting into these well-paying jobs perpetuates that. And, the domino effect of, here's what happens when, people aren't making enough money and all of these things. So we would really, really love to see how we get the process moving in getting the state to look at revising the civil service system.
Yeah.
May I jump in here? Are we recording and streaming live right now?
We should have said that. I think we are. Brittany?
Oh, okay.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
All right. I just wanted to make sure that everyone was clear. I wasn't sure whether we were supposed to be or not. Thank you.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
COVID meeting rules, we have to.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
Mike Lane, Tom, where is the support for the continuation of the 3 top person testing and interview process? I've known in the past there have been experiments with the top 5 or top 10 that we've seen happen. Who keeps wanting this the way it is? Is it the union?
I honestly don't know, Mike. That's a good question. I've never really inquired about what the opposition is to this. Certainly it's founded in having the most qualified candidates get considered, at least based on a test score. That's what the foundation of it was. But in practice, I really think there should be a lot more factors considered than just performance on one test.
Right. In other words, at the inception of it, it was a radical reform rather than just political patronage to get jobs. At least
Yeah.
people take a test.
Right.
Couldn't agree with you more, Senator. And Mike, just for the record, we and Lisa would remember the Workforce Diversity and Inclusion Committee when we first started looking at this. It invited the state civil service attorney to come and meet with us. And he made it very clear to us that it is not going to change and it will never change. It was quite the conversation with him at that time. But time has passed and we might be able to do something different.
Yes. Yep. Well, I've had requests from many sources to look to try to open this up. So it's something that's on my agenda to try to get through.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
We would love to, after the budget dust settles, maybe let's pick this back up and really get serious about it.
Yeah.
I
Would
think
love to.
NISAC is definitely ready to help.
Good.
That'd be great.
A couple of other quick items under the public safety topic, the raise the age implementation and our status in terms of upstate counties, Southern Tier, Finger Lakes. We're having a very tough time. This is, the 16 and 17-year-olds that are no longer incarcerated, which we support. However, our hands have been tied in that OCFS has prevented us from building a facility here, a regional facility. We had a partnership of about 11 counties in the Southern Tier Finger Lakes region to build a specialized secure detention facility, and OCFS has put the brakes on that. But then in the meantime, as these cases surface, there are no beds available statewide for specialized secure detention. So it's left us with no way to comply with the state mandate. And it's a dangerous situation for us to be in and for these youth. So that's.
Yeah, we've had to, in fact, store people in the sheriff's office over the weekends because we have no place to put them. And that's the best place that we can figure out is the sheriff's office, which is not ideal.
In the office, not.
Yes, in the sheriff's actual office.
Yeah.
Right. And this is
In the office,
statewide.
not in a holding cell.
No, not in a holding cell, in his physical office.
Okay. Yeah,
And
that's not ideal.
I mean, Sheriff Spike, who is Yates County, he's chair of the NISAC Public Safety Committee. He's had to have young people driven to Niagara Falls, to Long Island, and that's even if you can find a bed. And it's absolutely, Lisa, I didn't even know this, that OCFS prevented the 11 county partnership from doing this. And that was the commitment of Raise the Age, that the state was going to pay the expenses.
Yeah.
So.
Yes.
Why did they forbid us from building a facility?
You think it was money, maybe?
Likely. And the issue is, for any county the size of ours, these cases are rare, but when they come up, when their need comes up, we need the bed. And that's the same for any of our surrounding counties, which is why we thought partnering together and why OCFS was in support of that for the better part of a year or two. When it came to locating a site and building the facility, they said no new build. So yeah, it's left our hands tied.
And the governor has certainly closed a lot of prisons during his tenure. So most of those facilities have gone unused, and I think could be readily adaptable to this type of situation. And frankly, they should be. We've got Camp Monterey in Schuyler County, very close by. I forget how many they can house there, but a couple hundred anyways, I think. You know, and that shock program, not that that has to be a part of it, was a great program.
We were considering
But-
that site at one time.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, there's been very little interest in that site from anybody from a development perspective. It's, you know, it's in the middle of nowhere. Hate to say that, but it's in my district. But it is. It's very remote, and you know, it would provide a lot of opportunities for young people to do things productive, as the shock facility did for a long time. You know, there's a you know, just an unlimited amount of outdoor activities that could go on. You know, they used to cut their own firewood, just for an example, and that was something productive that the inmates, I guess you'd call them, the residents would partake in. But there's something needs to be available. You know, to me, I hate to keep repeating it, but it's another example of where Cuomo has not followed through on promises made to get something that he wanted. But on the back end, the return is not there.
Well, you know, and even worse than sheriff's deputies have to drive kids across the state. The kids, it's terrible for the young people. It's just terrible. And that's not the goal of this. Was never supposed to be the goal. So it looks like 3 of you are late to your other meeting. Are you?
Yes. So I do have to jump off, and I know Henry does too, Lisa. You know, the other thing on the agenda is I'm keen on is the community college funding, as we know where that is, and so I'll listen to get a report following. Senator, again, thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Good to see you.
Good to
Thank
see you again.
You too. Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks for being. So to pick up on community colleges, I know that the Senate did add 13.6 million, I think, to the governor's proposal and reestablish the 98% base as the floor for funding.
Yeah.
And
Which is critical, and I'm certainly very supportive of that. I was sorry to see that go away, because you know, in fairness, you know, the enrollment fluctuates, you know, up and down from year to year, and you need to maintain operations and ability to offer curriculum, you know, and that changes from year to year. And certainly, I think enrollment over the last year was very low. So that 98% floor is going to be important to have in there.
I know that one of the issues, and Mike Lane can talk about this better than any of us, being our liaison to their board, to TC3's board, the issue of counting the aid on a head count versus FTE basis. And I'm not sure where the Senate came out on this, probably as FTE. Mike, do you want to go through that? Because it really matters.
Well, the proposed change would hurt our community college at TC3. We have, for example, the co-curriculum students. We have one of the largest co-curriculum cohorts in the state of the community colleges, from Portland and Ithaca and Tioga and plus counties that are not exactly adjacent to it, and they are counted in the FTE numbers that we have to use every year. What we don't want is to reverse the proposal and end up with less money in support of the college, because sometimes we have a lot of part-time people that go together to make an FTE, and the head count is a lot different, and whether they count a part-time person as a full-time person or not, I don't think it will.
One of the problems is that we're seeing changes in enrollment, especially during the pandemic, more part-time students. And because of the open enrollment requirement, you might have 2 or 3 part-time students that would add up to 1 FTE, but each one of those students may require certain remedial services because of open enrollment. And so we're providing services to 2 or 3 students and only getting, federal, state funding for 1.
Right.
Exactly.
And they really, our community college management really feels strongly that the FTE count disadvantages them in terms of getting funding for the kind of special programs they need.
Honestly, even if it's not special programs, if you're doing administration for 3 individuals, that's 3 times the bookkeeping and the management for the 1 FTE count.
Mhm.
Financial aid, and everything else.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Yeah, I'm not sure where that stands at the moment. I'll look into that.
Thank you.
That's great. And TC3 does, the federal aid has really been tremendously important. They did give most of it directly to students, because like when they had to go remote suddenly last spring, a lot of students didn't even have laptops or places to go with Wi-Fi. So there's most of their money really, that aid went to help their students. Deborah, you wanted to talk about STOA aid.
Yeah, I don't know how much you're plugged into this, Senator. I'm on the board of directors for Tompkins Consolidated Area Transit. I know, like a lot of transit systems, we really had to step up during the pandemic to provide mobility services that were needed by healthcare, food service, and other essential workers. And we did that. But there were increased costs and revenue losses because of the pandemic. And those will affect our finances for at least 3 or 4 years going forward, during which time we're actually trying to figure out how to provide more mobility services to accommodate the recovery of our local economy. Our ridership fell at times during the pandemic by over 80%. It's recovering only very slowly. And for each of those decreases, we're also seeing a decrease in fare revenues. The thing that's kept us going is STOA, the State Transportation Operating Assistance. And the thing that saved us is that the state used the hold harmless provision, which meant that they calculated our STOA funding as a percentage of our 2019 ridership rather than dinging us and providing funding only for our actual ridership in 2020. So we ended up getting about 80% of our STOA in 2019, even though our ridership was down sometimes 80%. So on behalf of our transit system, I'd really like to ask that you consider extending the STOA hold harmless provisions through March 31st, 2022, using the pre-COVID ridership rates and basing it on some sort of formula with that. Also, I guess in last year's, the 2020-2021 budget, the governor had cut STOA funding at a time when we actually need it to increase. So we're hoping that you'll consider increasing the STOA provisions in the budget with a goal of increasing it 50% within 5 years. Also, we ask that you continue and perhaps increase the funding for rural transportation in the state's Department of Health budget and develop a robust 5-year capital funding program for non-MTA transit. This is going to be particularly important as we try to electrify our bus fleets to meet the CLCPA greenhouse gas emissions reduction standards. And in addition, in 2019, NIPTA documented the need for $1.7 billion in non-MTA transit systems infrastructure. And we only had about 700 million at the time in revenues available to meet that need. So that's a $1 billion delta that we sure could use some help for. We recently learned that OMB is considering changing the requirements for the metropolitan statistical areas. And we don't really know how that's going to impact the Federal Transportation Act assistance that we get, which is also a big piece of our funding for these transit agencies in upstate New York. So the STOA is of particular concern to us, and I'd really appreciate you helping us out with that.
Yeah, that's been a priority of mine for several years now. Really brought to light when they did the MAS non-emergency Medicaid transit referrals and moved so many people off of public transit into taxi cabs and whatnot. So that's been an issue that we've been trying to plug that hole every year with $4 million, which is insufficient for that. That is the same amount it's in there this year again. It's in the health aid to localities portion of the budget, and also in our Senate One House, there was a significant increase to STOA funding. I think it was, I'm just recollecting, I think it was about $100 million increase to STOA. Whether that survives or not is another is a whole nother matter. But so that certainly appears to be a priority of the Senate majority at this point for that, because we are seeing, how much the MTA is getting, and they deserve it. They need it.
Yeah.
And the MTA is critically important to the entire state, because the city economic engine, flows a lot of resources upstate. So it's important that we support that, but we've got to maintain our own transit systems as well, and hopefully expand them to encourage more people to utilize them. So
I looked in the NISAC document and they didn't have it. Under transportation, it was just about roads and bridges. Would STOA be in a different category?
no, I'm just looking back to the outline I had when I was debating the budget at the beginning of the week, and it was in the same section with the CHIPS funding, and that there was a line for STOA, and I'm thinking it was 100 million. I may be wrong. That's just a recollection I have from Monday. So I don't.
Okay.
I'll have to go back and look at that. If I can find, I'll be able to find it and let you know.
Okay, I can
I
also.
don't know what the assembly had in. I don't know what the assembly had in theirs on that.
Martha, I don't think NISAC would focus on this particularly because most of the transit systems upstate are run by the cities.
Yeah.
Okay, that may be why it's not in there. Okay, that'd be great if you could find that. That'd be wonderful.
Yeah, but those city transit systems are, especially for cities like Corning and Elmira and Ithaca, they're going to be really dinged by this if they change the OMB metropolitan statistical areas from 50,000 to 100,000. I mean, some of us are already kind of on the borderline. Mike, you said Ithaca was 55,000 based on the land.
Yes, the urbanized area
Yeah.
based on the previous census figures.
And we don't know what the situation with the Cornell students being not on campus in the spring when they did the census. We don't know what impact that's going to have on our census tracts here. So we're worried.
Yeah.
That's a federal designation. The comment period ends today, and there were a lot of comments in. I know I saw a letter from about 55 members of Congress, including Anthony Delgado, against these changes. So, so you'll look up the STOA money. That's great. Deborah, would you talk a minute about, there was a lot of money for transit in the CARES Act, and I think there's more in the,
Harissa,
in
or
the
whatever they're calling it.
Would you
Yeah, but
help the
we've,
senator understand that that doesn't take care of everything?
well, what it's taken care of is getting us, it will get TCAT through the mid to end of next year, given the losses we're having in fare revenue and some issues we're having with Cornell's ridership and the increased expenses
Mhm.
that we had for COVID. You know, you have to run more buses to provide the same level of service, or the same number of buses to provide less service, because you can't fill the buses. You're not allowed to because of the COVID restrictions. So even though we're providing less service overall, it's not costing us very much less to do it. And we're having to plug the holes from reduced STOA and drastically reduced fare revenues with the CARES money. It won't last very long.
What is your, in a typical year, what amount of the budget is covered by fares?
Man.
Dumped.
Maybe 25%. You know, don't hold me to this because I really
No,
didn't.
no, I won't. I'm just wondering. I know it's pretty low. So yeah.
Yeah, because we're in a different situation. We've got the county, the city, and Cornell kicking in, you know, a couple $1 million apiece, and the biggest piece, obviously, STOA, and then the FTA assistance under 5307 and 5311 are a big chunk as well. But we're afraid that's going to go down or get lost.
Yeah.
And of course, it's kind of like the community colleges to the extent that you require payment by the user, whether it's tuition or the fare on the bus, you're really going against what the mission of the whole organization is. You need to keep those fares low. So, I know we're gonna have to close soon. Mike, you wanted to talk about changes to STAR. I'll also, to the STAR program. I also want to mention, Senator, there are a number of attachments in that message that I sent this morning, and I think it came from Brittany Grip in our office. There are two related to broadband, and I hope you'll take a look at those. Very important, and we'll be happy to follow up with any information if you have questions. But rather than take time on that, Mike wanted to talk about STAR.
Yeah, if I could say anything, it'd be tell Governor Cuomo to stop messing with STAR and trying to eliminate folks that already have enhanced STAR reductions in their assessment and trying to push them onto this check portion of the STAR program that was enacted a couple of years ago. We understand it's a financial accounting trick in the budgeting to make it look like a revenue instead of a liability. But it's very upsetting for our elderly people. They don't want to make the change, and just because somebody has a deed keeping life use, or just because somebody who has a lower income retires and now is able to have STAR because there's some change, that shouldn't change the reduction that they have on their home assessment. So we've got a memo from, which I believe is in the packet, from our director of assessment, Jay Franklin. He's one of the lead people in the state on assessing, because we are one of the only counties that has a countywide assessment, as you know. So we hope that you will continue to support not changing the STAR program to make it more difficult for our citizens.
Sure. Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Thank you.
Mike, I hadn't included that memo, but I will follow up with that to the senator's office.
Yeah,
Okay.
our assessor's very aware that a lot of the older people who would take advantage of this aren't computer savvy. So he's actually figured a way that he and his staff can make sure that they get the forms filed for their star exemptions and they never have to worry about it again. This would put them back at the mercy of the state having to do the work and them having to do it via computer.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Just one other thing that we didn't touch on, the early intervention is a program, and you're on the insurance committee. We see the legislation. It's S5560A, Reichlin and Melnick, on early intervention, and I understand that has passed the Senate and the House and the Assembly, and we really are hoping that will go all the way through. It's a covered lives assessment so the insurance companies, insurance industry will accept early intervention payments, costs as legitimate and as they are supposed to be. And that would make a vast difference in our ability to actually hire and retain the kind of therapists that our kids need. And it would be a huge benefit. So we're hoping that will go through. And you've got that in your big fat email already.
Okay.
So is there anything else that we should touch on?
Good, Martha. I just want to say that we're very interested in what's going to be happening with redistricting. Once the census information comes, and I just mentioned earlier before you were able to come on, Senator, that they're going to try to get out some information a month early, but it may not have all the technical niceties that it should have for redistricting. So are you hearing anything about what's going forward? Are they going to do hearings like they have in the past? I certainly wasn't happy when they turned over the congressional redistricting 10 years ago to a special master who didn't even have an upstate hearing that I was aware of. So that's something that we're concerned a lot about in Tompkins County.
We are concerned about that very much right now. My predecessor, George Winter, is on. He's an appointee to the what's called the Independent Redistricting Commission that was established through a constitutional amendment, I think 6 years ago. There was funding approved for that in last year's budget. None of that money has been released to the commission. So they've been unable to hire people. They've been unable to get a computer system and necessary software for this process. And what's going on right now is that there's another referendum coming up this November to change the Independent Redistricting Commission that we haven't even gone through one cycle with yet. That will pretty much eliminate the independent portion of the commission and take away the minority's role in the redistricting process. So, I'm hoping that doesn't pass because the Independent Redistricting Commission was a bipartisan effort that was, finally put forth 6 years ago. I'd like to see us go through that process and try it, see how it works. But it gives, at least equal footing in the initial drawing of the maps to a bipartisan effort, regardless of who's in the majorities or not. So, if this changes, if this passes in November when it's on the ballot, and we start this other process, it's going to be even later. The first maps are due, I think January 15th is when they're due under the existing Independent Redistricting Commission. Things are just going to be delayed faster, and I don't know how they're going to have enough time to do a thorough job of this redistricting. And certainly now that the Democrats control both houses of the legislature, they're looking to get more control of this redistricting process. So it remains to be seen when that's going to happen, but it is going to be a very, very tight time frame to get things together and get maps out. So that's going to be a challenge.
I understood that the commission was deadlocked on just the appointments to it.
No.
Appointments have all been made?
Well, there's two. I'm not sure if the two. There were appointees by each conference of the legislature, and then those were then to choose two independent ones on consensus of those of the 8, I believe is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't recall whether those have been filled yet or not. But I know that they're from talking to George Winter once in a while about this, that's not holding anything up. It's the lack of getting any funds to be able to actually establish an office. They don't have office space. They don't have computers. They don't have a telephone. And right now there's a fight going, just something in the news on it yesterday, the day before, that there's a fight now of whether it's going to be considered a state entity for purposes of indemnifying the board members that are on it, or whether they can be sued later on down the road. So it's a nightmare right now. It's very much in a state of chaos.
And those January 15th maps, would that be for the state seats as well as congressional?
Yes.
Okay. That's a lot of work to do.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
Mm.
Just throw darts at the map on the wall and.
I know. Well, we'll see.
Okay.
We'll see where it goes. It's too late in the game to be making changes, in my opinion, to something this critical that we only do once every 10 years. So it's important that it gets done correctly.
I don't understand the point of changing something before you've even tried to see if it works.
Well, that's politics, and it's certainly partisan. But certainly politics is part of redistricting, and I think we all understand that, but it shouldn't be the sole driving force of it either.
All right. Well, Deborah and I have to get ready for a 3:00 meeting, and I'm sure you have lots of other people waiting to hear from you too, Senator.
I got to read your email.
That's
Senator, thank you for
Yeah.
Yeah, I
thank you
hope
for your
next time
efforts
we'll see you in
for
person.
our locally sponsored laws that you've helped us get through the Assembly and the Senate. So that means a lot to have someone helping us with those.
Well,
Absolutely.
I'm happy to do it, and I love working with our local governments throughout the district, and we've got a pretty good team both in the Assembly and the Senate throughout my district. Much better at working with our local governments than what I hear from colleagues from other parts of the state. So I think we're lucky in that regard, and it is important to me. But I came at least with some experience in county government, and so I still hold that near and dear.
Have you had much interaction with our new Assemblywoman?
No, because no, there's nothing going on like in person.
Right.
So I've talked to her. I'd like to get together with her, but it's just so weird in Albany. There's very little personal interaction going on.
Yeah.
It's weird here too.
Right.
Yeah.
This is how we see each other now, for a year. Yeah.
Well, hopefully in a few short months we'll get this vaccine thing to the state where we can get back to normal.
Yep. Absolutely. All right. Good luck. Stay safe. And Thank
All
you
right.
very much. We really appreciate your time. This is always a
Uh,
great conversation. We really
Nice
appreciate
to see you all.
it. All right,
have a
you
good
too.
day.
Thanks, Senator. Stay
Thank
well.
you.